Today's video is sponsored by Southern New Hampshire University. More on that later. How's it going, everyone? It's me, Hakioku, and in today's video we're going to be going over a complete weapons tier list for Alhaitham right before he actually comes out in-game. Now, I am basing this off of the beta and how his kit works, and that'll hopefully get us a pretty good idea of what weapons are going to work well with this kit, and just for overall damage as well. So right off the bat, I just want to say that his best in slot weapon is probably going to be his best in terms of both damage as well as just overall on his kit as well, because it is just going to be really good on him. Good amount of attack, lots of crit damage, and also its passive gives you some crit rate. Your normal attacks deal elemental damage, and gives you this stuff that gives you additional damage based on 120% of your elemental mastery. So very, very strong. But sadly, this tier list that I have on here does not actually include it, so it's not going to show up on the final tier list. So that's just a little disclaimer before we start ranking the rest of these. But yeah, if you don't know how Alhaitham works, basically he has split scaling between attack as well as elemental mastery. I would recommend going for that split and not necessarily just honing in onto only attack, just because, like, yeah, he has a lot of damage that comes from his elemental mastery, so if you have like none or like only just a little bit, it's not really going to benefit you very much. So elemental mastery weapons are definitely going to get a little bit of a boost on here. But yeah, if you want more details behind that, go make sure to check out my weapons guide for Alhaitham. That is up on my channel right now. You can click it in the card in the corner. But yeah, we're just going to pretty much rapid fire rank these, I guess. Like, I'm going to briefly talk about each of them, but we're basically just going to start ranking these from best to worst, I guess you could say, or however the curtains fall, or however the raindrops fall on this tier list. So Cool Steel at R5, this is going to increase your damage against enemies affected by Cryo or Hydro. The thing is that you're not really going to be attacking enemies affected by Cryo that much. However, it is interesting to note that Dendro and Cryo can actually coexist alongside each other. So potentially you could have like Cryo sub DPSs with Alhaitham, something like that. I wouldn't really recommend it just because he's going to get most of his utilization through reactions. But it's possible to run this with like a Cryo and Hydra team or something like that. It could be interesting. But I really wouldn't recommend it. So even at R5, I would still say that this weapon is probably going to be a C tier. Like, it's still a possibility. It has like attack percent on it, but it's just not really going to be that useful on Alhaitham specifically. The Dark Iron Sword only comes at R1, but the thing is that it does come with Elemental Mastery as a substat, as well as its passive whenever you trigger like elemental reactions. Pretty much it's going to increase your attack by 20%. Sadly, we couldn't get this to R5, but it is still a weapon to pick up if you are early game or something like that, or just want to mess around with something different on Alhaitham. Could potentially work. So I am actually going to put this up in the B category. Coming back to work after the holiday break can be a struggle. Just when you got comfortable, forgot about working, and perfected your vacation sleep schedule, reality returns, and it's not pretty. Of course, returning to work is a lot easier if you have a job that lets you live your passion. So let's make 2023 a year you start making that a reality. A great place to start is Southern New Hampshire University, who is sponsoring this video. SNHU has one of the largest accredited non-profit online degree offerings in the country. I want to talk to you about their game development program today. In this program, you'll learn how to create realistic dynamic gameplay experiences with game AI, game physics, 2D and 3D graphics, and interface design. You'll also learn computer programming languages such as C++, C#, and Java. And you'll also learn 3D modeling and texturing with game art software. You will learn how to research, develop, and contribute to advances and trends within the field of game programming. Courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience. SNHU is radically affordable. Their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. Follow my link in the description, snhu.edu/hakioku, and that'll take you to see what the current average annual salary of a programmer is and request free information about the program. A real person will hop on the call and discuss how the program can benefit you personally. It only takes one click to find your calling. Thanks once again to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the rest of the video. The Fillet Blade is going to be an interesting option because this does come with a damage dealing kind of passive where it has a chance to trigger like a damage instance, which can be interesting because this is some weapon that a lot of people actually use. It's kind of similar to like Prototype Archaic or whatever it's called, where you're going to get that big hit of damage. That is, I think, considered physical damage. I'm not sure on that. I don't really remember. It's been so long since I've used these. But anyway, R5 of this might end up being better than this, because you get attack percent on the substat, basically. So I would say, yeah, at an R5, this is probably going to be a little bit better, maybe. The Harbinger of Dawn is a weapon that is very, very good on basically any character that doesn't necessarily need as much attack. And so I would actually say this is probably going to be our first A tier. The only A tier out of the blue weapons, just because it's really going to hone in on stuff that Alhaitham kind of needs, like crit rate, crit damage, and so that's going to be pretty good on there. At R5, yeah, this is going to be a very solid weapon to pick on him, and the advantage behind this is because you can run like a little bit more elemental mastery rather than crit damage, something like that. The Skyrider Sword, this one comes with elemental recharge on its passive, I think. So that's what it gives. But then its passive basically gives you like extra, I think, attack whenever you cast your burst. Not really that great of a weapon. I would put this even below the other thing right here, the Cold Steel. So yeah, that's pretty low down there. It's still usable just because it has energy recharge, which is a pretty solid stat, and it gives you a little bit of attack. But I wouldn't really recommend it. And then Traveler's Handy Greatsword, yeah, this is going to be a D tier because, like, really, it gives you defense, and its passive, it restores HP whenever you kill enemies. So it's really kind of bad. It's actually really bad. Don't use it, ever. Now here's where we get into a little bit of a conundrum, because we go to all these 4-star weapons and 5-star weapons, and we have to start ranking them according to which ones are going to be good at like R1 or R5, or however this is going to line up. And R1 to R5 might actually change a bit in terms of how we stack these up damage-wise. So these are going to be mostly, I would say, damage-wise in terms of stacking. So like some of these might be a little bit lower ranking. For example, like you might have a Skyward Sword that's like a little bit lower ranking, something like that. But that's just going to be for the sake that you're not really going to get as much damage out of it. However, like, yeah, at R5, yeah, we might as well put this up here. But like R5 Skyward Sword is probably going to be up here in the A tier, just because you can refresh your elemental skill quite readily. But at R1, I wouldn't really recommend this weapon, so I'm going to say this is like a C tier weapon, pretty much. Like, you're going to be getting some good burst type uptime from that, but for example, that's how it would be in my head, where this is a higher ranking, not because of damage, but because of how it actually stacks up, just in general gameplay wise on Alhaitham. The Ammonia, this sword is basically the craftable one from an Azuma. This comes with attack as a substat, as well as giving you succession seeds, which actually start restoring energy over time. So it can actually be pretty good. At R1, I would say this is probably going to be up here in the high B tier, just because the energy recharge you're getting back on it isn't going to be too crazy. But at R5, this is probably going to boost up to an A tier weapon, because, yeah, you are going to be able to get a good amount of energy on this. Even without, like, energy recharge, this is still going to be pretty good, plus you're getting attack and that kind of stuff. So I would say it's honestly going to be a little bit higher than the Skyward Blade, in terms of damage, basically. So yeah, if you have this at R5, I would use it over a Skyward Sword, just saying. The Blackcliff Sword, this one comes with like crit damage as a substat, pretty high base attack, and then the passive, whenever you defeat enemies, you're going to be gaining some extra attack, which is really nice. At R1, I would actually put this over the Amona, just because this is pretty much giving you a bit more benefit or stuff that can be applied over the span of his damage, because like he's only going to be able to use attack percent partially, but at crit damage he can utilize a little bit more readily. And R5 of this is probably going to be up here as high A tier, just because the amount of attack you get off of this is also going to be very potent on Alhaitham. So if you have an R5 of this, that's going to be very good to use. The Defense Albedo Sword, this isn't really going to be utilized whatsoever on him, so I'm going to put this down here in the trash. It honestly could, I guess, maybe be a little bit more utilized than this other thing, but yeah, both defense scaling swords just hop down there. Tony Sword at R1 is going to be able to give you some good particle regeneration. I would honestly say it is a little bit better than Skyward Sword at R1. Yeah, so you get a bit more energy recharge with this weapon, as well as a little bit more base attack, I think, than Skyward Blade. I think Skyward Blade has a little bit more energy recharge than Favonius, but you lose out on that like base attack scaling. So yeah, this is going to be slightly better than this one, plus its particle regeneration can be used for like your whole team pretty much, which is going to be pretty valuable, I would say. So that's a little bit higher than that. Although I would not rank this weapon as high, I would probably say this is R5 is a B tier on here. Just because, yeah, you do get good particle regeneration and that kind of stuff. It's just, it's at R5 of Skyward Blade, or at R5 of, yeah, whatever this is, Sacrificial Sword. You're not really going to be able to get as much utilization out of it. And plus, yeah, resetting your E skill is going to be pretty fun to use. Festering Desire at R5 comes with energy recharge as its substat, as well as its passive, increasing like your, I think, E skill damage, and also E skill crit rate. So it's not really going to be that utilizable on Alhaitham. Really, it just becomes an energy recharge kind of bot thing with a tiny bit of extra damage. So I am going to put this like right here. That's because it is like pretty low C tier, I would say. Just because, like, yeah, being able to completely reset your E skill is going to be interesting, as well as particle regeneration on the Favonius Sword is going to be a bit better, I think, for your overall energy than Festering Desire will be. The Iron Sting is a fun weapon, considering that this one actually increases your both Elemental Mastery by a whole bunch. It has a very good amount of substat on that, plus its base attack is 510, which is pretty mid and average, so it's going to be very good for an overall build. Also, its passive does increase your elemental damage by up to 2 stacks, and that can get up to like 24% at like R5, I think, or like 32% at R5 or something like that. So it is pretty good on there. At R1, this weapon I think is going to be pretty high B tier, just because it is going to be really good. Or I might actually put this a low A tier, because it's still going to be a very solid weapon. I don't know if I could rate it higher than these ones. I might actually rate it higher than Ammonia, just because, like, yeah, it is going to give you a lot of energy recharge, a lot of, I mean, not energy recharge, a lot of elemental mastery, and a lot of, like, elemental damage bonus, so I think it's going to be a little bit better for an overall build on Alhaitham over these other weapons. And then at R5, I'm actually going to put this one up in S tier, just considering that the good amount of substat damage you get is going to be good, as well as, like, yeah, its passive is going to be boosted out, basically double of what it is going to be down here in A tier. So yeah, this will be probably S tier, low S tier when we actually get finished with this. Plus overall build, it works very nicely on Alhaitham. The Prized Ishin Blade, this one comes with like attack substat, I think, as well as like giving like a damage instance or like extra attack or something with its passive. So it is interesting. I would probably put this like above Fillet Blade maybe, but I don't know if I would rate it higher than these other options. Lion's Roar is going to be an interesting option, considering that it could actually be utilized extremely well for a burn build with Alhaitham, considering that Dendro characters are the ones that actually drive burning. So you could potentially run Alhaitham with like Pyro characters as sub DPSs and be able to actually reliably trigger burning on enemies. And this is basically going to activate Lion's Roar's passive, which increases your damage against like Pyro or Electro affected enemies by a good amount. Plus this comes with attack percent substat, which is going to be pretty good. So I'm actually going to rate this pretty much, I guess I'll give it a low A tier, just because it's very niche. It is very niche, but at R5, this is probably going to boost up to a little bit lower than Iron Sting, just because Iron Sting is probably going to be a little bit more reliable and efficient. But yeah, that's how I'm going to stack those up. This physical damage sword, I forget what it's called, but it's not really going to be that great. You can get physical damage, but Alhaitham does in infusion, so it is going to be down here, probably in the D for do not use category. The Royal Sword comes with attack percent as well as a passive that gives you different stacks whenever you're not critting. However, with Alhaitham, considering that he does have a lot of damage instances, this isn't necessarily going to be as useful, I guess you could say, just considering that, yes, you could stack up a whole lot of stuff, but it's not really going to give you as much benefit as a lot of these other items are. I would still probably put this higher than Fillet Blade and Ishin Blade. just because, yeah, it does give you a bit of crit rate and stuff. At R5, it is honestly a pretty potent weapon, so I guess I'll give it a high B tier, but it's not really an A tier weapon. It's not really one of those prime choices, I would say. Sapwood Blade is going to be pretty good, just considering that it is a Dendro-themed kind of weapon, so whenever you are doing like Dendro-related reactions, or I think just reactions in general or something like that, you are actually going to be gaining like a seed or something that gives you like extra elemental mastery. So at R1, this only gives you 60 elemental mastery, but yeah, and it doesn't come with elemental mastery as its substat either, so if it did, this could be a pretty potent weapon, but since it has energy recharge instead, I think I'm gonna have to rate this one like right in this range. Like I'll probably give it right here like a little bit better than Royal Sword just for the average player. At R5 though, this one might gives you like 120 elemental mastery, which doesn't really change much. You do get extra energy recharge, so I guess in terms of damage you get higher damage than yeah, I guess I'll put it high B tier because you don't really get as much damage with these ones, but you would get more damage with this just because of the elemental mastery you're getting. But yeah, they both all have like elemental energy recharge or something. Sword of Ascension, I don't really know why anyone would use this, but yeah, I'm probably gonna put this down in low C tier just because it's only a base stat weapon if you're not using on Traveler, and Alhaitham is not Traveler last time I checked. The Alley Flash is gonna be interesting considering that it has a high base attack as well as elemental mastery as a substat, so you do get a little bit of elemental mastery points, and also its passive does give you a damage boost whenever you're not being hit by enemies, so it can be pretty interesting as long as you're not getting hits. So if you run like a Zhongli or something like that with Alhaitham, this could be pretty good to keep its passive up. At R1, I could see this being utilized pretty well, but not as much as like a Blackcliff weapon right there. So I guess I'll put this right in this range. But then at R5 with that extra amount of damage bonus, I think this is going to boost it up to like a high B tier. If not low A tier, I'm going to put it low A tier just considering that at R5 this weapon is going to give you a lot of damage bonus whenever you're not being hit, as well as its base stats are pretty good. So yeah, up here in A tier, maybe even higher than Lion's Roar in terms of damage. Yeah, in terms of damage, R1 Lion's Roar is not going to outperform this, I don't think. The Black Sword is going to be a pretty good option considering that it does come with a substat of crit rate, which is going to be very nice for Alhaitham because that's going to give you a lot more damage potential if you run him with a lot of crit damage and stuff. So that's going to be very good. Its passive also increases your normal and charge attack damage, which is going to be pretty substantial on Alhaitham considering that I think he utilizes both of those. So yeah, at R1 this is going to be a pretty good weapon. I would say it's really, really up here in the A tier. Just because of all the bonuses and damage you're getting on this. I would probably put this above this, I would say. I would still rate it lower than Iron Sting just considering that it is still an R1 weapon and it only has like crit rate, but it doesn't have like elemental mastery and that kind of stuff, so I would rate elemental mastery as higher just because of how it scales with Alhaitham. But at R5 this is going to give you like 50 or 40% I think charge and normal attack damage, so it is going to get pretty high up here. I don't know if I would rate it like higher or lower than the Blackcliff Sword. Well, actually I would rate it higher than the Blackcliff Sword just because yeah, like more damage consistency because you do get that constant buff, and also like healing, you can heal yourself with this. I forgot about that. But yeah, this is going to be pretty high up here in the A tier, I would say. The Flute comes with like attack percent. I wouldn't really call this a great weapon just because its passive takes so long to stack up and it doesn't really do much damage. So honestly, this is pretty much just a attack percent weapon. So I would put it pretty much right here in the C category. At R5, it's not really much better. I would maybe put it at like high C, and that's about it. High C. That's a drink. The Zyphos Moonlight is actually a pretty solid weapon on Alhaitham because it does come with Elemental Mastery as a substat, as well as its passive converts the points of Elemental Mastery into Energy Recharge. So honestly, this is a very, very potent weapon to use on Alhaitham just in general. So I am going to give this a pretty high A tier. I would honestly say it might even be better. This is definitely going to be better than a lot of these weapons. I would probably put it right up here with Blackcliff, Iron Sting, and or Black Sword, Iron Sting, And yeah, that's going to be right up there with that. And then at R5, just the amount of energy recharge you're going to get is just going to increase your damage boost out by a lot. So I am going to put this up here probably at a high A tier, just because just how much benefit it gives you is going to be very good. And then the umbrella weapon that just came out with the event, let's see, at R1, this does increase your personal damage, but only to a single target. This is honestly kind of an inferior version of Iron Sting. And so I would put this like lower than Iron Sting, so I'm going to put this like right in this area, or actually below like R5 Lion's Roar, just because R5 Lion's Roar is going to be pretty good even in like niche situations over this one, which is applicable but just not as great, I guess you could say. And then R5, I guess I'll give this a rating of right up here, but it's still not going to be, I don't think, as good as like a lot of these other weapons. But yeah, now getting into the fun part, which is 5-star weapons. So the Aquila Favonia, this has physical damage. Not really going to be that great of a weapon at R1, or at R5 it still could be pretty good. But at R1, I'm going to say this is going to be like in the B tier somewhere. I'll probably put it down here somewhere, because this is really just giving you base attack and attack percent substat with a little healing. So yeah, I'll just toss it down there. Then at R5, you do get, I think, up to like 40% attack or something, which is substantial. It is a substantial amount of attack on substat plus high base attack, so you could get a lot of attack usage out of it. So I'll put it up here, right here in B tier. It's still not going to be that excellent on him. The Freedom Sword at R1, I think, is probably going to be up here in the A tier, pretty high up here, because, you know, R5 4 stars are pretty comparable to R1 5 stars a lot of the time. This does have like a highest amount of elemental mastery you can get, and so I would actually compare it to a lot of these other ones. I will actually rate it slightly lower than these. I'm gonna toss it right here in the A tier, and then I'm gonna toss this other one up here. Well, I guess at R5, yeah, this thing would be a monster. So yeah, up here in the S tier, it is gonna be ranked up here in the S tier, just because the amount of like substat stuff you get off of it is gonna be very good, way better than Iron Sting R5. Haran Gapukufutsu, this one is probably going to be one of his better damage options, just because it focuses around normal attacks, as well as giving you crit rate as a substat. This one is going to be probably pretty high up here in the A tier, I would say, as well. Like, it's going to be a very solid option for him. A lot of crit rates, a lot of that kind of stuff. At R5 Iron Sting, I might actually use an R5 Iron Sting over this, depending on what build I was going for, because this will give you damage consistency with its passive, as well as elemental mastery, which just gives you a base for scaling off damage to begin with. So if you have enough crit rate, crit damage, that could be pretty good. Then at R5, this thing is probably going to out tank even Freedom Sword, just with the amount of damage you get off of this. The HP scaling sword, I'm going to toss this down in the do not use category, just because, yeah, like I really would not use it. It's not really worth it. The Mist Splitter of Forged, this one is kind of similar to Haran Gapukufutsu, where, like, yeah, you are going to be getting a lot of damage off this, crit damage, elemental damage. I would honestly rate this higher than R5 of the Iron Sting. That's just my personal opinion, just because crit damage and also elemental damage that you're getting off of this is going to be very valuable. And at R5, yeah, I would say maybe it's going to be a little bit lower than this one, just because this focuses around normal attack damage, and this one just gives you like extra elemental damage bonus. So I don't know, I'm going to rate that like that. Primordial Jade Cutter is going to be very good. I would say it's a little bit worse than Haran Gapukufutsu, just because, yeah, this one focused around like normal attacks and that kind of stuff, while Jade Cutter just gives you a little bit of like extra attack with its passive, and they have close to the same stats. This one has a little bit more attack, base attack, so it's going to be pretty good. At R5, this is probably going to boost up to higher than Mist Splitter, I would say, definitely. I would still rate it lower than these ones, just because that's my personal opinion, just because Elemental Mastery is going to be nice with Freedom Sword R5. Skyward Blade, honestly, I don't really like this weapon too much. It's just not very good in a lot of cases, so I am going to rate this probably, yeah, at R1, it's not really going to be that great of a weapon. So I'll probably rate this down here even below a lot of these other weapons, just because, yeah, it's not going to be the best. It does give you a little bit more damage instances, which can be interesting, so I guess I'll give it like an A tier. but not really that high of an A tier. At R5, this one gives you a decent amount of crit rate and crit damage. So I'll toss it probably up here. And then last but not least, the Summit Shaper at R1. This one comes with attack percent as its substat, as well as its passive, giving you some extra like shield strength and also some extra attack whenever you're scoring hits on opponents, so it can be pretty good. Basically what you're going to be using this is with like a Zhongli or something like that. You pretty much want to have this on your Alhaitham with like a Zhongli, Diona, well, not necessarily Diona, but like a Zhongli, basically any shielder. You could use like a Toma or something like that. Could work very nicely, but this is going to give you a lot of good attack, so it is actually pretty underrated considering that is the highest amount of attack that you can get from a sword. But keep in mind the Alhaitham split scales between attack and also elemental mastery, so really it's not going to be as good on him as it could be on like some other characters, but I would still put this up here relatively high, maybe lower than this. I guess I'll give it just a spot right here, something in this section, because yeah, because like R5 of this is way better in my opinion, because the energy recharge stuff. But R5, this one is still gonna be like pretty high up here. I would honestly say like still kind of lower than a lot of these other options, but like the amount of attack you get is really good. It's just that like, yeah, you miss out on a lot of the crit stats, so I don't know where I'd put this. I'd probably I guess I'm gonna have to put it a high A tier, because it is very niche, but it's still very good. But yeah, this is basically my tier list, I could say. Keep in mind also that his best in slot is above the Haran. But yeah, this is my tier list for Alhaitham. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it, and leave a like down below if you did. Anyway, remember to subscribe. I am trying to get to 13,000 subscribers, so it would really help me out a lot. And feel free to check me out over on Twitch. I also stream over here quite a bit. We stream other games other than just Genshin. We stream like anime games and whatnot over here as well, so it really is a fun place to catch me live. But anyway, it's been me, Hokioku. I'll see you guys next time. Farewell.